Welcome to the Martin Bailey Photography Podcast. It's June 29, 2021, and this is episode 743. My apologies for going completely down Periscope for the last month. As I was wrapping up my previous episode, I found out that Adobe had transitioned to a new API to build plugins for Photoshop, and I decided to look into creating a full-blown plugin to replace my fine art border scripts, which I'd literally knocked together on a Sunday afternoon in 2013, as I needed something to automatically add the above center offset fine art border that I use when printing, and it was a relatively easy thing to create. The fine art border scripts have sold pretty well over the years, but they were somewhat inflexible and required the user to edit the text file script when they need to change the ratio of the vertical offset or change the width of the border, etc. The relatively tertiary look at the new API told me two things. The first was that I figured I would probably be able to write the code for the plugin that required the original scripts to be manually edited, and that would make the plugin much more intuitive. And the second thing I noticed was how incomplete the new API currently is, mostly due to this second point. To complete the plugin to its current feature level, I literally had to spend every waking minute for the last month, and once again drove my wife crazy as I got up early each day and kept my laptop open until moments before we went to bed each night. Of course, you haven't seen a podcast or a blog post for the last month either, for which once again I apologize. But I am very happy with the results. There are a few things that I want to add in a near future update, but I ended up with a much more feature-rich replacement for my 2013 scripts, which I've called the MBP Fine Art Border Tools plugin for Adobe Photoshop, affectionately known in short as Fab Tools. As I completed my preparation for this post, I received word from Adobe that the plugin has passed their review. So I'm really excited about this. Over time, this post will become dated, so if you check this out much after June 2021, please check the product page, which is linked at the top of the blog post for this episode. And there you'll find the most up-to-date information. You can also subscribe to the plugin notifications list on my newsletter, and I'll keep you updated to any new features of note when they're released. All of that, links, etc., and links to the product on the Adobe Marketplace are at mbp.ac/743. Let's continue now, though, with an overview of what the plugin does. The new plugin has three main modules, one for framing and resizing for the web, and the second for print, both with the same visually pleasing vertical offset, but with the ability to change it to any value, moving the image both up or down in the frame. The third module is completely new to enable the addition of a watermark or logo. Currently, this only accepts images, but I intend to add the ability to add a text-based watermark soon. There is a fourth tools panel, but that is to provide links to a few global features like showing or hiding tooltips or showing the custom formats before the mostly uneditable presets in the print frame module. There may be a few more panels in the coming months, but at the time of release I'm very happy with the specific feature set that I've built, and I hope you find it useful. As you can see from the screenshots that I've included on the website, the web frame module is relatively simple on the front end with a few nice tweaks to help your workflow. The idea is to add a border the width of which you specify with the border field in pixels. If you have a specific height and width that you would like to resize your image to, you can enter both values. If you enter either the long edge or short edge value and turn on Auto Calculate Ratio, the plugin will calculate the edge that you didn't enter automatically. When you enter the short edge, you'll notice that the short edge heading becomes underlined, indicating that it has priority. To go back to long edge priority, simply enter the long edge value. If you'd like to frame your images inside a square, just enter the long edge value to resize to and turn on the Create Square Border checkbox. We'll then create square borders and position your images inside. The top-bottom border offset slider is where you move the image up or down in the frame. For centuries, fine artists have positioned their work slightly higher in the mat or frame to provide more pleasing visual balance. Moving your image up slightly also gives you room to sign or add a watermark to your work. After a lot of research around 10 years ago, I came to the conclusion that a good balance for fine art prints was to calculate 10% of the height of the image and use that for all 4 borders while moving the image up by 3%. This gives 10% side borders and a 7% top border and 13% bottom border. In the web frame module, we convert these percentages to pixels as you specify the border width in pixels. So moving the image up 3% in a 100 pixel border equates to 30 pixels. Just wiggle the slider around and hit the apply button to see what you get. The revert button reverts all changes, so it's easy to try different settings. Depending on the ratio of your image, you may find that you get slightly larger borders on the top or sides when working with a specific media size. With the web frame module though, if you only use long or short edge priority, Fab Tools will add the exact size border on all 4 sides, offset to the amount you specified. If you want completely equal borders, leave the offset slider at 0. There are 3 more checkboxes to talk about before we move on. First, you can add a 1 pixel outer border using the color selected as your secondary color in Photoshop. A mid-gray is a good choice. This just helps your images to stand out against a similar color background and will disappear against a darker background. There's also a checkbox to automatically save and close the image after applying the border, and a final checkbox to add the watermark on completion, and we'll look at watermarking in more detail shortly. The next module is for framing for fine art prints. This is the closest to my 2013 border scripts release, but now highly customizable right here in the user interface. There are 28 presets which, to protect the integrity of the media formats, cannot be modified other than the border size and the vertical offset. If you change the border size, it will be automatically saved for future use, but a revert button will appear to remind you that you've modified the preset and to revert to the 10% preset border if necessary. In addition to the 28 media presets, there are 10 customizable formats based on popular media sizes and a few square frames. You can take these and make whatever you want. You can enter the long edge, short edge, border width, all in millimeters, as well as a custom name for your format and a short description. Each of these fields is saved as you move away from that field. But if you want to reset this and start again, just select a saved custom format and hit the revert button. The vertical offset you select is currently not saved as part of your custom format, but if you think it should be, let me know and I'll consider changing that in a future update. A completely new addition is the ability to add graphical watermarks with precision to pretty much any location on your image. Start by selecting one of the 9 anchor points, including the 4 corners, center sides, and the center of the image. From there, you can nudge the watermark up to 100% of the image away from that point. If no image resize has been performed, you can only anchor the watermark in relation to the canvas, but once you have performed a resize, you can also select to anchor the watermark to the inside or outside of the resized image within the frame. You can currently only load one image, but once it's loaded, it will generally be stored until you change it. You can scale the image to a percentage of the width of your resized image and change the opacity, which is useful if you're placing a watermark over the image area. Once you've specified your settings, you're ready to apply your watermark. When you are happy with the placement, you can also turn on the checkbox in either of the resize modules to automatically apply the watermark after resizing. There's no need to worry about image orientation. We calculate the position based on your image size and orientation, so the watermark should be placed perfectly each time. As I mentioned earlier, there is a 4th panel called Tools, where you can turn off tooltips and have the custom media show at the top of the format pull down on the print frame tab. And there are some other options, such as the ability to reset the settings and all of the media modifications if necessary. There's also a link to sign up for our plugin notifications and a button to show the folder where the plugin settings are stored, so that you can, for example, back up all of your custom media, or if you want to move your settings and media to a second computer that you own. You can do that with the files in the path that is displayed. Note too that although I've used the dark theme plugin screenshots for this post, it fully supports the light theme as well, and will automatically adjust the colors used based on your theme preferences. Okay, so let's take a look at a few practical use scenarios for the features and modules we've discussed. To be completely honest, one of the reasons I started to look into the new plugin technology was because I had to modify one of my original 2013 scripts to enable me to easily reframe some of my recent micro photography work to upload to Instagram. Ironically, that was also put on hold for the last month as I worked on the plugin, but I really wanted an easy way to add what I call the fine art border to my images in preparation for web upload. I had originally planned to just add a completely square border, most suitable for Instagram, but that became a checkbox option in the final plugin. Here, for example, though, is a small gallery of images with square borders, which looks really neat on sites like Instagram that list images in a square format. It also helps with uploading very tall images as they get cropped by Instagram, and that's always been a bugbear for me. Notice how the border automatically calculates the necessary position of the image within the border and moves the image up in a fine art border style according to my settings, although I actually use the default vertical offset and border width for these images and just turned on the Create Square Border checkbox so that they were all put neatly into the same sized squares. Also note that once you are happy with the position of your watermark, you can simply open the images that you want to resize and turn on the automatically save and close option, and if necessary, the Add Watermark on Completion checkbox, and the image will be resized, watermarked, saved and closed when you hit the Apply button. Unfortunately, at this point in time, Adobe does not include actions performed on these plugins to be recorded in Actions. So you do have to open all of your images and hit the Apply button for each of them. But with everything else being automatic, it's not a painful process to go through even a few hundred images if necessary. Adobe is saying that recording in Actions is coming soon though, and I'll ensure that this works as expected when that happens. Of course, the plugin also handles the addition of a uniformly sized border adjusted based on the size of your original image. Here is another gallery of web resized images, this time without the Create Square Border checkbox turned on. Note the square image and portrait orientation image in this gallery. Nothing had to be changed in the plugin to cater to these different sizes and aspect ratios. I just pressed apply on each image until the end of the set. You'll need to click on the first of the image in this gallery to open them up in the lightbox before you can view the various aspect ratios properly. You don't have to add a watermark, of course, and generally for Instagram I don't, but this should be a good illustration of the precision and positioning of the watermark. It's also great for mocking up prints for sale if you sell prints that are signed. Just scan your signature and save it as an image file, and you can associate that with the plugin in the watermark module, and it will be used until you change it. The reason that I created my original fine art border scripts back in 2013 was to prepare images for print with the fine art border vertical offset already in place. If you print directly to the media size that you want as your final result, the border can generally be created by adjusting the border widths in your printing software. But getting the ratios the same each time you print can be challenging. I always used a spreadsheet with my calculated border sizes in it and managed a large number of printing templates, and that can be avoided by running your images through this new plugin. If you are printing to the media size of your final output print though, it's best to uncheck the checkbox to add a 0.3mm stroke border around the outside of the image. If, however, you want to use the plugin to help you save money carrying various media sizes, leave that border on so that you can see where to trim after you've printed. The idea is that, say for example, you create prints for sale in, say, A4, 8x10, A3 and 8x17 inches, but you don't want to stock all of these sizes as sheet media in various finishes. Let's imagine that you need an A4 and an 8x10 print, and you have a 24-inch wide roll media printer. It takes just a few seconds to resize your images using my new plugin. Then click on the padlock of the background layer of one of the images in Photoshop to unlock it. Then specify a canvas size small enough to print on your roll width. 24-inch rolls are 609.7mm wide, so you can either specify, say, 600mm and print without any scaling, Or if you know, like I do, that your printer requires a 3mm border on each side, you could simply resize your first image canvas to 603.7mm so that it would fit perfectly after deducting your printer's minimum edge gap. Make the height something taller than the tallest print you need, say 220mm in this example. Because we unlocked the first image before resizing the canvas, we can easily move the image in slightly and then drop our 8x10 inch resized image onto the newly resized image and position it to the side of the first image, as you can see in this screenshot. If you print this at 220mm high on 24-inch roll media, you have minimum waste and, once trimmed, 2 perfectly sized prints. Even if you don't have a roll media printer, you can save on sheet media varieties in a similar way. Say you received an order for a print on A4 media, but you don't have any A4 sheets available. You could resize and add the trimming stroke border, then print on something larger like A3 media. Here's a screenshot of the Photoshop print screen with the print resized to A4 about to be printed on A3 media. There's a waste of media that we would trim away, but it does save on stocking lots of media sizes of different sheet media. And of course, similarly, you could simply lay out 2 prints on the A3 page to minimize waste. Note too that some programs have the ability to add additional trimming guides, such as the corner crop marks that I turned on in Photoshop in the above screenshot. Also note that to ensure that you print at the correct size, you need to turn off any scaling to fit the media. The images are currently saved in the original resolution or set to 300 ppi. If the resolution isn't set for any reason, it will be set so your resized image will be displayed at exactly the size you need if you print without any scaling turned on. Okay, so that's about it for this update. As I say, if you're interested in this plugin and are checking this out much after June 2021, please check the product page which I've listed on this blog post. But otherwise, the links are now in place to go over to the Adobe Marketplace and check out the plugin and pick up a copy if you're interested. Just click the logo that says MBP Fine Art Border Tools when you visit the blog post at mbp.ac/743. If you pick up a copy of the plugin and have any problems or suggestions, please do let me know via the support form, and that's all linked from within the plugin. Note that Adobe, the Adobe logo, and Photoshop are either registered trademarks or trademarks of Adobe in the United States and or other countries. Thanks very much for listening today. If you enjoy this podcast, please share a link with your friends. Subscribe in iTunes or your favorite podcast program to ensure uninterrupted delivery. If you have a moment to rate the podcast or leave us a review in iTunes, that helps to keep us relevant in the huge number of podcasts out there now. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn, and links to everything that I'm up to are at martinbaileyphotography.com, so do drop by and take a look. I'll be back next week with another episode, but in the meantime, you take care and have a great week, whatever you're doing. Bye bye.